Netflix employees staged a walkout outside the company's office studio complex in Los Angeles on Wednesday to protest Dave Chappelle's stand-up special The Closer, which has drawn criticism for its perceived transphobic comments. The special debuted on the streamer on October 5. As Associated Press reports, the rally was also attended by counter-protesters. Most appear to be advocating for the platform's employees, AP noted. Transparent creator Joey Soloway spoke during the rally. Soloway said Chappelle's decision to share his outrage as comedic humiliation in front of thousands of people, and then broadcasting it to hundreds of millions of people is infinitely amplified gender violence. I want trans representation on the Netflix board this expletive week, the writer-director added. Don't forget to watch today's video in full to learn how Dave Chappelle responded to Netflix employees' walkout protest against The Closer. Supporters joining in. Other supporters joined from afar. I stand with the trans, non-binary, and BIPOC employees at Netflix, fighting for more and better trans stories and a more inclusive workplace, Elliot Page, who stars in Netflix's The Umbrella Academy, tweeted. If you're not standing up for trans lives, you need to take a good look at who you are standing with. Director Lily Wachowski tweeted, "Good luck today, everybody." The rally also drew detractors who touted signs that read free speech is a right and truth is transphobic, per AP. There were some clashes, but the conflict was mostly limited to a war of words, AP reported. Prior to the rally, Netflix issued a statement acknowledging the walkout. We value our trans colleagues and allies and understand the deep hurt that's been caused, a Netflix representative said. We respect the decision of any employee who chooses to walk out and recognize we have much more work to do both within Netflix and in our content. Demands from trans employees. As The Verge reported, the list of demands from the trans employee group at Netflix that helped organize the walkout includes hiring trans and non-binary people to executive and other leadership positions, as well as creating a fund to support trans and non-binary talent. Harm reduction was also on the list, under which it called for disclaimers that specifically flagged transphobic language, misogyny, homophobia, hate speech, etc. as required. We want the company to adopt measures in the areas of content investment, employee relations, and safety and harm reduction, all of which are necessary to avoid future instances of platforming transphobia and hate speech, they wrote. David speaks up. Dave Chappelle responded to the controversy over his Netflix stand-up special, The Closer, which has been criticized as promoting bigotry toward transgender people, by posting a 5-minute video clipped to Instagram on Monday in which he denied that he had been invited to speak to transgender employees of the streaming service and refused. That is not true, he said in the video, which was taken during a weekend performance in Nashville. If they had invited me, I would have accepted. Although I'm confused about what we would be speaking about. I said what I said, and boy, I heard what you said. My God, how could I not? You said you want a safe working environment at Netflix. It seems like I'm the only one who can't go to the office anymore. In his video, Mr. Chappelle addressed the transgender community, saying, I'm more than willing to give you an audience, but you will not summon me. I am not bending to anybody's demands. Mr. Chappelle said he had 3 conditions for any meeting. Those involved must watch The Closer in its entirety. You would choose the time and place, and you must admit that Hannah Gadsby is not funny. Others break silence. Miss Gadsby, a comedian whose specials have been successful on Netflix, criticized Netflix's co-chief executive Ted Sarandos this month for defending Mr. Chappelle. Mr. Sarandos had invoked Miss Gadsby in a statement in which he defended Mr. Chappelle's right to artistic expression. Mr. Chappelle also said that a documentary he made chronicling a series of stand-up shows he hosted during the summer of 2020 from a cornfield near his home in Yellow Springs, Ohio, could not find distribution because of the controversy over The Closer. Directed by Stephen Bodnar and Julia Reichert, the film had its world premiere at the Tribeca Film Festival in June for the reopening of Radio City Music Hall. Mr. Chappelle said he would release the documentary himself in 10 American cities over the next month. 10 dates in different cities were listed on the Instagram post. How have Netflix executives responded? Co-chief executives Reed Hastings and Ted Sarandos have been steadfast in their support of the special. A discussion from an employee messaging board obtained by the New York Times for an October 14 story showed Hastings speaking out in support of artistic expression. To your macro question on being on the right side of history, we will always continue to reflect on the tensions between freedom and safety. I do believe that our commitment to artistic expression and pleasing our members is the right long-term choice for Netflix, and that we are on the right side, but only time will tell, Hastings wrote, according to the New York Times. He also wrote that Chappelle was very popular with subscribers and that the core strategy is to please our members. When another employee brought up an opinion that Chappelle has a history of homophobia and bigotry, Hastings said he disagreed and that Netflix would continue to work with the comedian. Netflix sees further actions. In a memo sent to employees last week, Sarandos also affirmed his position in support of the special, according to the New York Times. While some employees disagree, we have a strong belief that content on screen doesn't directly translate to real-world harm, Sarandos said, according to the Times. The strongest evidence to support this is that violence on screens has grown hugely over the last 30 years, especially with first-party shooter games, and yet violent crime has fallen significantly in many countries, he continued. Adults can watch violence, assault, and abuse, or enjoy shocking stand-up comedy, without it causing them to harm others. On Tuesday, one day ahead of the walkout, Sarandos walked back some of his comments, saying he screwed up his communications with staff members, but that his stance on the special hasn't changed. According to The Hollywood Reporter, I should have first and foremost acknowledged in those emails that a group of our employees were in pain, and they were really feeling hurt from a business decision that we made, Sarandos told THR, saying that his memo lacked humanity, in which I like to and generally do communicate with our teams. Sarandos added that he does believe that content on screen can have impact in the real world, positive and negative. Sarandos also maintained that Chappelle's special was in line with the company's policy on artistic expression, and said it wouldn't be appropriate to add any disclaimer about harmful content ahead of the special. How has Chappelle responded? Chappelle and his spokespeople have been quiet amid the swirl of controversy. Just days after The Closer was released, Chappelle performed at a star-studded show at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles, where he was greeted with a standing ovation. If this is what being canceled is like, I love it, he said. What happens next? At Wednesday's rally, the Trans Employee Resource Group read a letter to Sarandos detailing changes they want to see within the company, including a demand that Netflix create a fund for non-binary and trans talent, revise internal processes for releasing potentially harmful content, add disclaimers on shows with transphobic content, and acknowledge the harm Netflix has caused to the trans community, among other measures, according to The Hollywood Reporter. Protesters speak up. Chappelle fans, with signs featuring phrases such as "jokes are funny" and "Dave is funny," squared off with walkout participants with posters that read support, uplift, protect trans voices, and gender is not a fact, educate yourself. Rallying cries such as, "What do we want?" "Accountability," "When do we want it?" "Now," largely drowned out chants from those defending Netflix and Chappelle. Demonstrators began arriving outside the Netflix office on Vine around 10 a.m. Wednesday and chanted, "Trans Lives Matter." Counter-protesters toted signs advocating for free speech and bearing anti-trans rhetoric. "I'm here to support the black trans people who Dave Chappelle has belittled and erased," said protester Lily Weaver, a 34-year-old union attorney from Koreatown. "I'm here to support the black, pregnant employee that Netflix fired for standing up to them. It is absolutely disgraceful that Netflix is profiting off of transphobia. I think that Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos has really embarrassed himself by dismissing his employees," Weaver added. "The company has embarrassed itself by retaliating against workers who spoke out, and I would encourage Mr. Sarandos to listen to the people who work for him." In a statement provided to the Times, a spokesperson for Netflix said, "We value our trans colleagues and allies and understand the deep hurt that's been caused. We respect the decision of any employee who chooses to walk out and recognize we have much more work to do both within Netflix and in our content." With that, we come to the end of this video. Don't forget to join in a next time for more of such interesting content.